There's been a row brewing all day about a council putting Irish first before English on logos, vans and letterheads. Unionists are outraged, nationalists and Republicans say this is what equality looks like. Well, with me here in the studio to discuss the DUP's Nelson McCausland and Declan Kearney from Sinn Féin. Why should Irish go first?
It's a case of cultural equality. And I certainly wouldn't subscribe to the notion that you place one language in primacy over the other.
If Irish goes first, it has primacy over English.
Yeah, well, in the context of what's been done in Newry and Mourne, it's actually compliant with the sense of the European Charter on regional or minority languages, which is about encouraging means and ways where there can be greater appreciation for minority languages. So in that sense, it's a very consistent thing to do. What I would add is...
So the language that less people recognise, the language that less people understand in some council areas goes first.
There's a huge Irish language speaking community here in the north of Ireland.
There's a bigger English speaking community here in Northern Ireland.
There's a huge Irish language speaking community. And this is about placing an emphasis on equality, the rights of citizens from right across this community, of all and no political affiliation or religious background, to learn, to use and to cherish the Irish language as the property of all.
Okay, that's because what's wrong with that?
Well, first of all, I'm interested in the fact that Declan Kearney speaks about equality, because we're all familiar now with what Sinn Féin means by equality.
Your partners in government.
Sorry, the fact is that whether I like it or not, people do vote for them. The fact is, as Jerry Adams explained to us, equality is simply a Trojan horse to advance the nationalist Republican cause and to do down those whom he abused.
Could you answer the question? What's wrong with the Irish language?
Oh, there's nothing wrong with the Irish language. Could I just make the other point? You made a very valid point there, because not only do we need to pick up the issue of equality and Sinn Féin's misunderstanding or misuse of equality, but secondly, you mentioned there the fact that very few people in Northern Ireland actually would be fluent in Irish. We were told there was a very large community. The 2011 census makes very clear that 90% of people in Northern Ireland have got no ability to either read, write, speak, understand Irish at all.
You said this policy on the radio this morning was cultural sectarianism. Mm-hmm. Do you stand back from that? Do you retract that? Cultural sectarianism.
Interesting enough, the term cultural sectarianism was invented, I think, by someone from the Republican community some years ago. That's where I picked up.
Can we stop the history lessons? You said it this morning.
Well, it's
do you stand over it?
Indeed I do.
Why?
Because I believe that's what First of all, this is about a council. Newry and Mourne Council has had this policy for a number of years. This is the same council that last week voted to retain the name Raymond McCreesh on a children's play park in Newry. And if you don't see sectarianism in a council like that, whether it be the SDLP, whether it be Sinn Féin, it doesn't matter. Nationalists and Republicans in that council have year after year back naming a children's play park after an IRA terrorist. I think it's pretty clear that's a council that's sectarian.
What way do you think the Irish language should be treated?
I believe that minority languages should be treated as part of the cultural wealth of a country. The sad thing is that for more than 100 years, since the birth of cultural nationalism, we've had Sinn Féin and other Republicans using it and abusing it as a weapon. Instead of turning swords into ploughshares, they turn ploughshares into swords.
Should it be promoted? Should Irish language be promoted?
If people want to learn Irish, that's already happening.
Sorry, just a minute. The question is, should it be promoted?
Well, first of all, we have already a very extensive education system in Irish. We have all of the investment in the Irish language from the Department of Culture, Arts and Leisure. It's something that happens.
Are you just going to duck every question I ask?
Nelson, your party and my party agreed to the Stormont House Agreement. Paragraph 68 of the Stormont House Agreement commits to the need for recognition and respect for the use of the Irish language in the north of Ireland. Now, let's start the conversation from the 23rd of December on, paragraph 68 of the Stormont House Agreement, and let you and I have a sensible, growing-up conversation about how we can, together, build increased understanding and appreciation for the Irish language in this society.
You've mentioned the word equality quite often. Within this Irish language bill, here's what I've noticed. And some people might not know about this until now.
We don't have an Irish language bill. The difficulty is
the Irish Language Act. The Irish Language Act.
We don't have an Irish Language Act either, because in 2006 we did have an agreement that we would legislate for an Irish Language Act. And the reason we don't have one is because the British and the Dublin government defaulted on their responsibility.
Carol Nolan has proposed an act. Please let me read this, because you've talked about equality.
Consultation.
Well, let me let people know what's within this. Here's a little paragraph I found. Provision for affirmative action in favour of Irish speakers in recruitment to the civil service and other public bodies. So if you speak Irish, you have more chance of getting a job than if you speak English. And that's what you're proposing from within this, and that's equality, is it?
There is a draft act. There's a draft act for consultation.
Which you're supporting? You're supporting that? If you speak Irish,
can I speak?
That's equality,
would you mind, like a good man?
Is that equality?
Hold your wish 3 minutes. What we're going to do with the draft act is put it out for consultation. Let the people have their say. Let's actually take the opportunity of this consultation to design a bespoke approach to how the Irish Language Act can be taken forward in the society.
Let the people have their say, but you're a very intelligent man,
let me tell you
so
something.
I want you to explain this, and it's a very simple question.
Yes, well, I can explain
no, I need to ask
myself.
the question first, because this is the very simple question. Why should it not be the best man or woman getting the job in the public service, rather than what you want, which is if you speak Irish, you have a better chance in getting it? Now, how about answering that?
Tonight in Derry City, in St Colum's Park House, the London Derry Bands Forum membership are attending an Irish language class. I think that's a step forward for this society.
Is that the answer to my question?
That's an example of leadership for how we can, in fact, have cultural respect and cultural equality.
Provision for, if you don't answer it, I'll ask it again.
In this society.
Provision for affirmative action in favour of Irish speakers in recruitment to the civil service. Do you support that?
And it would be much better if we could actually start the conversation from a point where collectively and together we can stop sectarianising these issues, polarising these issues, as Nelson, you have done, and actually look collectively at how we take the Irish language forward in this society as a gift and the property of every citizen.
Now, can we come back on several points there? First of all, this is not cost neutral. There is a cost to all of this fantasy that Sinn Féin has.
There is Scots.
No one has suggested anything for any other language. We're dealing with Irish. Decal, the Minister, Sinn Féin.
Promotion of Ulster Scots?
I don't want an act about. I don't want an act about Ulster Scots or any other language. I want it to be dealt with tonight.
You want Ulster Scots funding cut, do you?
Do you agree that the Irish language? Do you agree with paragraph 68 of the Stormont House Agreement?
Declan.
Do you see if you can
I think we need to let him answer.
Common ground.
We need to let him answer.
Forward.
We need to let him answer.
Thank you. First of all, this is not cost neutral. It was interesting when she launched her consultation on an Irish Language Act that Caroline Killen wasn't able to tell us what it would cost. She says she has no idea what it would cost. The truth of the matter is that at a time when we face financial constraints in Northern Ireland, this would mean squandering millions upon millions of pounds. Because what this is, well, she doesn't know. She can't even tell us. Well, if she's the minister, she has all of the resources.
How do you know it's millions and millions?
First of all, very simple. You start doing the calculation on how much does each department at the moment spend on advertising? And then you double it up, because it wouldn't just be an advert in English, it would also be in Irish as well. And therefore you would have to double the cost of advertising for every government department. They're also proposing in this legislation that in every government department there would be people who would be able to do all of your business for you in Irish. That means extra people being employed simply to do unnecessary translation. It's expensive, it's divisive, it's discriminatory.
What cost on equality? Can you put a cost on equality?
Certainly, if that's Sinn Féin's version of equality, it's Trojan horse.
Nelson, this isn't about...
I want to go up in the audience. I'll come back to you. I will come back to you. Lady up here. Lady up here. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Stephen, I just want to make the point that I am an Irish speaker. I also want to make the point that I am a firm believer that being pro something does not necessarily mean you're anti the other. For example, I'm pro GAA. I'm not anti-soccer. I'm pro a good cup of tea. I'm not anti-coffee. I am pro the Irish language. It's not me. I'm anti the English language. In fact, I am happy that I am bilingual.
So would you be happy with English language coming first? Does it not matter to you, or does Irish language have to come first?
All I want is equality. I want to see both my languages put together, regardless of what way they go. I want to see both my languages represented.
Thank you very much. And there's a guy here. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm not an Irish speaker, but I have, as a musician, worked with Irish lyricists, Irish-speaking lyricists, and I have no problem with the Irish language. What I would ask both gentlemen is, who is going to feel discriminated against if we don't have Irish there? I personally don't get it, as a person, but I don't think the Irish language should be denigrated.
Language. Some people see it as the language, their first language in this country.
I find it...
And it's an important part of their culture.
No matter how much it actually costs, if it takes any money away from health and education, I think it's too much, personally.
Right here, go ahead, very quickly. Go ahead.
Hi, Stephen. Make up one point, first of all, is if it's going to be an issue, put the English language on one side and the Irish language on the other side of the car. That's fine. But my point is, to yourself, is you talk about equality. What about the Nigerian population coming over, the Polish population coming over? They might not understand, and you can take away their rights. What about then they're going to kick up that they want their language on each side?
We live in an increasingly multicultural and multilingual society, north and south of the island, and that's a very good thing. The distinct characteristic of the Irish language is that it is indigenous and integral to the historic heritage of the island of Ireland. That's what makes it different. Now, it is a case of creating the circumstances where every citizen can have access to the use of the language. It's not about discrimination against one section of society over the other. This is about a provision that has been made from the Good Friday Agreement onwards, the proposal for an Irish Language Act in 2006, which has never been brought forward, and now we have an opportunity in a new political space of renewed political stability, where we can take the Stormont House Agreement and that particular provision which addresses the issue of the Irish Language Act to work out together in a way, Nelson, where we don't have to be arguing over the point, where we don't need combative discussions.
There would be less need for argument if we didn't have a situation.
Please let me finish. In a non-combative way, it would be much better if you and I were sitting down and working out together how we can ensure that there are enhancements put in place to ensure
First of all,
that the
let me
rights
come
of
back
Irish
on it.
language
First of all,
are
I find it very funny when Sinn Féin talk about the term non-combative. Yes, it's a good term for Sinn Féin, showing their history. The fact of the matter is there's coercion in this, because every councillor in that council has now been told, whether you're an Irish speaker, whether you like it or not, you will have Irish at the top of your personal note paper.
That's
coercion.
No,
that is coercion.
that is,
and the fact is, let me finish,
if
please.
you were right, it would be coercion, but it's
let
not.
Me finish.
Well, you're
sorry. Well,
let's let him finish. We've got about 40 seconds left.
Yes.
Very quickly.
This is actually about Sinn Féin advancing their policy of the cultural humiliation of unionism. It is about cultural domination.
Cultural humiliation of unionism?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because we've seen all along, these are the people who talked in the past about a bullet in the freedom struggle. When they use a word in Irish, they see it in those terms. They see this
literally
in terms
10
of
seconds.
weaponized. Well, I think he's had more than time enough already. But there we go.
This is about cultural equality in our society.
And we know what Jerry Adams means about equality. Trojan horse.
For every citizen. Let's have a bit more respect for one another. Our differences,
Jerry's respect
our traditions. And I would appreciate it in the same way that I can afford and accord you respect as someone who holds to a British identity, a unionist tradition and the orange culture. You should reciprocate and do the same for me as a Gael, a Republican and an Irishman.
Thank you. Right.